for joining us here at the Heart of Irvine, where we're going to meet special guest Katherine. She's the head of the school here at LePort Montessori Mandarin in West Park, and she's been doing such an amazing job building it from scratch. From the beginning, and she's created such a wonderful program, a wonderful group of teachers, and now it's actually an institution here at West Park. I actually meant to tell you, when I looked up West Park, I have this ability to look up like what people are asking about when they search West Park, and LePort comes up twice in the top 20 searches.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So people that are looking up West Park are definitely looking at LePort. So I wanted to transition from that to just you and how you got started here at LePort and how you were able to create it from it not existing to now what it is today.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, I came to LePort basically as an interested parent. So at the time, I was working somewhere else. I actually was working in the field of music, which is my passion and study and past. But I was working in education for a music organization as an education director, managing education programs. So I had some education administration background. But really what I was looking for was a place for my own child, because she was getting a little older. I really, because we tried our best to speak Mandarin at home. I'm not completely fluent, though my comprehension skills, I think, have grown since being here. But we tried our best to speak as much Mandarin as possible to my young daughter at the time. And we really wanted to find a place that she can actually go to preschool and continue in her education, or start her education in Mandarin. And so I think I remember every day at work I would just Google like Mandarin immersion preschools in Irvine or Orange County, and nothing would come up, obviously, but determined, I'm still Googling it. And one day LePort Montessori popped up and said, we're having an info session because we're looking at starting a Mandarin immersion Montessori school in Irvine. And so I immediately signed up for that and just was really interested, obviously, in that. And so I had attended a parent meeting. So I came into LePort as just an interested parent. At the same time, I was kind of poking around their website and thinking about, okay, my daughter may be going to school. She's my first child. I don't know if I'm ready to let her go yet, because I was working from home some of the time. So it was something I was really very attached. She was attached to me. I was attached to her, and I really wanted something where I could be close to her. And so I said, "Is this maybe an opportunity for me?" So I was researching before I went to that meeting, and noticed the structure of the administration, and I was like, head of school, never would have thought. Never would have thought, just because most of the time the head of a Montessori school is a Montessori trained teacher of the past or something like that, and I didn't have that background. But I was still interested in it. So on the day of that very interesting parent meeting, and it was actually something that they first had one meeting, but they had to make it two, because the interest in Irvine was big. Obviously, I was one of those parents. And also because there was nothing like it in Irvine at the time. And so it was kind of a first. And this was back in fall of 2013. So that's when we were sort of obviously looking. So when I went to that event, afterwards, I approached somebody who I thought was important, and her name was Monica LePort. And I introduced myself.
You're right about her being important.
Yeah, I figured her last name is important, and so she was connected to, obviously, folks in the organization. So I talked to her and let her know about my background. She took my name down, and sort of the rest was history.
Amazing.
So getting started with the program, once I kind of came into LePort, this whole campus, it was actually previously a restaurant.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was a claim jumper.
Yeah, and so I actually went to school in Irvine, went to UC Irvine as a college student. So really, back in the day, it was just Claim Jumper and Del Taco, and this was like the place to go eat at 8 o'clock at night because nothing else was open. Or something
And you
like
came full circle.
Full
from
circle,
when you
right?
were a student to now you working with students here in the same place.
Right.
Except without the Claim Jumper food.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when we first started, it was really, LePort had some teachers that were already working at our other LePort campuses, because in Irvine we actually have 5 more campuses. And so they were working at other campuses and they spoke fluent Mandarin, and any chance I could, we would work together trying to figure out the Mandarin immersion piece of the program, because the Montessori materials and everything about the Montessori we already had the materials and all of the, obviously the training, the teachers had the training for that, but we had to work together to source materials and kind of figure out what it was going to look like. And I had such a learning experience because I didn't have a Montessori background, so I kind of just depended on the Montessori teachers. They were my teachers, you know, obviously all these years, and their expertise to be able to kind of put this all together. So it was just kind of I always say that this is one of my babies. Yeah. I actually have 3 children, but this was my second child, I think, in between my real second child.
The other 2 children, in between the other 2 coming, I see. What a unique experience having Montessori, but layered or integrated with that, the Mandarin immersion. That's so unique, and I know that there's other schools that are doing Mandarin immersion, but not necessarily Montessori. So I think you are providing such a tremendous value to the community of Irvine by having this. I mean, I myself am a parent of 2 kids here, and I really appreciate the work, and I think also being trailblazers in this, that having had no other campuses that do Mandarin and Montessori together, to be able to come up with something that works and that's continuing to work, and you see the results of it in these like wonderful, beautiful children as well. And so I think it's amazing what you're doing and what your teachers are doing as well.
Yeah, and I mean, just like you, I've gotten the opportunity to see my own children grow from this, you know, and to watch them, you know, and their Mandarin surpassed me a long time ago.
Do they speak Mandarin with each other?
They do.
They do.
They do. So hopefully yours will as well.
Soon. I hope so. I'm sure they will. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Katherine. Off camera, we talked about how you have a musical background. Do you still play an instrument? Are you still involved?
Well, I think especially, you know, being a mom of 3, it's just really challenging to have even a little bit of time for yourself. You know this, you know, working as well as obviously being a busy mom.
Yeah, 3 kids. I don't know why I did this, because it's more
it
like
feels
6.
like that. It feels like that. Yeah. But I think, you know, this, especially this particular year, just really to try to find that time for self-care and to really kind of think about the things that really make yourself you, right? I think that's one of the things that I've been really focusing on this year for myself, and been going to more concerts because I've been missing that. It used to be like my whole life, performing concerts or being a part of the performance process and things like that. I obviously love doing performances when we do it here.
Yes.
I get into that. You see a little bit of that.
I love that you get involved, not just as, you know, behind the scenes admin, but when I come to the campus, you're in this classroom, you're in that classroom. When we do events, you're part of the program. So I think that's really cool.
To be really hands-on. No, it's something that I love, that I can be involved and really get to know the children as well. Because every single one of them, if we have 100 of them, then I know all their names and their little personalities, you know, and so that's that's really a joy. For sure, not just my own
Yeah.
children, but getting to know everybody else's children.
You know
at
what's
the same
funny
time.
was because I asked you about what you like to do, you know, like in terms of like your musical interests and whatnot, and you brought it back to the school because this school is your child. You're so proud of it, you know.
No,
you
I
speak
think
of it as if it is your child.
Yeah, and I've kind of seen the campus obviously grown up, and it's coming up on its 9th academic year. So in a sense, it's 9 years old. It's an older child now.
Yes, yeah. And I believe it's very much a living, breathing thing because of all the people that are involved. You and I talked about how it's all about the people, and that's what makes it special, the community. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think earlier we were talking about, you asked me sort of what makes it special, what's the secret sauce, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, talking to, and it's especially lately, talking to parents or reconnecting with folks that have been involved or had their children in it years ago, there are still connections with friends, and they still think about that time period when their children were at LePort. And even I think there's a group of moms that still call themselves like LePort moms because they really they really love that time, and they made such close friendships, not just only their children, but I think because they had a lot of the common values, and I think things that they wanted for their children.
That's true.
And just formed these friendships that had just lasted all these years. And when I see them out in the community, it really touches my heart because, you know, we were able to have this school, but at the same time, it continues, right? The community is still there, and
I was gonna say I feel it too because I've been able to connect with a lot of parents as friends just because we have this shared unique experience that not a lot of other parents have of like, hey, my child is going through something very unique. It's not just school, like it's Montessori, and then on top of that, Mandarin. So.
And I would say too, you know, with staff, it's a very similar experience in that, you know, some staff have left because maybe they've moved on to do something else, or they moved back to China or Taiwan. But I've had staff just like come back and feel like I'm coming home. You know, that
family.
sort of thing, and of course we welcome them with open arms, right? And that is always just a really great feeling. Like last week we had a former teacher just visiting from Taiwan, and she just showed up. And we were like, you know, so it's a place that it kind of has that family style home feel, and I don't know how we necessarily created that. I think it was just the people, as you mentioned, that kind of have made it so special. And I don't know, it's just been a joy.
The culture feels very comfortable, relaxed, approachable, I would say, where it doesn't feel intimidating to just like walk in and ask a question or whatnot, you know. So I do appreciate the culture that was built, whether intentional or not. And I do know that it's been intentional having these get-togethers again now that we're past COVID, you know, hopefully. But to have these get-togethers where parents can get to know each other, get to know the teachers, and whatnot. And so, do you want to talk about where you feel the importance of that connectedness, of reconnecting and things?
I think, you know, we have brought back after COVID these sort of bigger events that were some of our former campus traditions that, you know, folks that came a little later, like obviously after COVID times, like your family, may not have experienced that. And so it's almost like new, but then at the same time for some of the ones that have been here, like myself, this is kind of like bringing it back. And even I think the last time we had like some music and dancing out here, those are like oldie songs that we kind of did in the past, and
that you brought back.
We brought back, and some of our staff like had the dance moves for it. Like we kind of just brought back some traditions, and hopefully, you know, moving forward, keeping those fun traditions alive, because it kind of it's a big part of the community as well, especially because this is a Chinese cultural community as well, and learning about all those traditions has been, you know, a part of the children's education, my own education. I grew up, I'm actually a Chinese American and Filipino.
Oh,
American.
you are?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. So is my husband. Yeah, he's Filipino Chinese.
And so it's something that I didn't really grow up with, some of the cultural elements and all the folklore and the stories and things like that, but I really learned it just by being here and from the teachers. And my children know, you know, all the stories behind some of the cultural events and things like that. And so I'm
That's what we're hoping to get as well, you know, us bringing our kids here, is because we ourselves, I personally don't know much about Chinese culture and all those stories and holidays.
and songs.
Yes, so it's really fun to see and experience that. And even outside of that, your culture seems to be, or the culture of the school seems to be very inclusive of other cultures too. Yeah.
For sure. I think there are families that maybe have Mandarin 100% at home, but maybe some of them don't have any, or maybe one parent speaks Mandarin or zero.
Zero, yeah.
So it kind of just all depends. That we basically invite
you're
any
able to
background
accommodate all backgrounds. That's
to
wonderful.
be able to come and learn. Yeah.
So I wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, and I know I already asked the question of what you like to do on the weekends, but as a mom of three young ones and whatnot, you haven't had as much time, but you're going to a lot of concerts. But let's say, you know, you did have more time. What's like on your bucket list of things that you've always wanted to accomplish or do that you haven't gotten to yet?
Gosh, I mean, I think with having obviously all my children and not being able to travel for a little bit during those COVID times, I think I haven't done that, you know, for a while.
Yes.
I really, since COVID times, I haven't been on a plane. I haven't been anywhere. So I hope to do a little bit more of that if I have time. But
where would you go?
Where would I go? It doesn't matter.
That part doesn't matter. You just want to get on a plane. Let's go.
No, I think I did spend some time in New York. I did my graduate studies in New York, so I'd love to bring my older daughter to New York just to kind of see the places where I used to be.
That's
I think
so different than Irvine. Do you think she'll be shocked?
I want her to be, because she hasn't really left the Irvine, can I call it the Irvine bubble?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so she hasn't really left that. So she's at an age right now, which it's one of those ages that I think hopefully she'd still want to hang out with me, right? So I want to kind of catch that moment and maybe do something like that where I can take her to places that I've been or I've lived and tell her those stories because that was a special time for me, obviously, then. And I actually, too, spent some time living in China. So I'd love to kind of go back to China and
with the kids.
Maybe. And I still have actually former teachers and friends that still live over there, and Taiwan as well, former teachers and staff. So there is sort of these like mini communities and Montessori communities too over there. I had just reconnected, and that's one of the things I think that I wanted to do more of this year, and I'm starting to do it right now, is just this sort of reconnection. I think after COVID, we were very isolated and not feeling so connected, and I think now that things have opened up a lot more and just getting back into maybe things that are normal, obviously, and maybe it's travel, but really reconnecting with folks that I haven't talked to for a long time. And just, it reminds me of a story that I WeChatted one of my former staff here, and she was only here for a year. She was a head teacher here.
Okay.
And I reconnected with her over WeChat, and she's like, I'm so glad that you contacted me, Katherine, because I said, how is your son? You know, and she's like, oh my gosh, my son is 6 years old now. And she just sent me a picture of her ultrasound that she's having a baby. So it was one of those things that like we hadn't touched base for so long. And she, you know, was here for a short period, but she was part of the community and the family. And I think, you know, maintaining those relationships and connections, I think is, maybe it's just more me, but that's what I hope to continue to do this year, just because it's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I think after COVID, we kind of, not to say like sad or anything, but we just felt, I don't know about you, but I felt really isolated that I couldn't really connect with folks. And then now sort of opening up, I'm having more lunches with folks and coffee and things like that. And just, I think that really, I don't know, it's made me feel good that I'm able to do that now.
It seems like what I'm hearing is it feels nice to reconnect, but kind of open your arms again and just reach out to folks and kind of ground yourself back into those friendships and connections. So that's great to hear. And you mentioned reconnecting over coffee or things like that. So just asking you a question about Irvine. Do you have any favorite spots that you like to go?
Oh,
yeah.
You know, I like, because I'm in the Great Park, so they have this little coffee shop. Do you know about it?
The Cup.
The Cup. I love going there because I can, in Novel Park, I can ride our bikes over there from our house. So, you know, that opened during the pandemic. And so that was something that I used to take the kids to because they were home.
Yes.
And I was actually at school and they were at home.
Oh, okay.
But I had to go, I went to work a little bit later each day, but in the morning I would take them there. So it was kind of our little
ritual.
like a little ritual. So sometimes I like that. More recently, I like, have you Aloha Stacks?
Oh, yes.
For breakfast.
Delicious. Indulgent, but delicious. Yes.
Too dangerous for me. But I've enjoyed taking the kids there early morning before all the people come.
Before the lines.
Before the lines. I've really enjoyed that. That's just a recent, but it's close. It's close by the house.
It's a fun place for the kids. Yeah.
But yeah, I live in the Great Park, so in that general area, and I've really appreciated just living kind of back in Irvine because I had my youth in Irvine and being back in the community. And I think my husband and I, our work and our children's schooling have been in Irvine because we've been at LePort for all these years.
Yeah.
And so being able to live and work in Irvine is just, we love it.
Ideal, right? Especially if you have kids. You don't want to have to drive too long.
Right.
Yeah. So you've been part of Irvine for quite some time. Awesome.
Yeah. And my husband actually went to Woodbridge High School, so he's an Irvine,
just over
Irvine
here.
boy.
Yeah, just not too far from here. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you, Katherine, for being our special guest today, and we'll see you next time.